Hey guys, welcome back to What's Up Grimes. My name is Jen and I'm sitting here with my co-host MK as usual. Hey MK.
Hello, good morning, or good afternoon now.
Good
But good morning to
afternoon.
you.
Sometimes we record at night, sometimes it's like 9 a.m. when we do it. It just happens to be 1 p.m. today. We have the honor of sitting here with Franz and Sally Steiner. Franz and Sally are Los Angeles-based creatives who currently run Steiner Creative based out of Optimist Studios. By letting life imitate art, Franz and Sally combined their 30 years of experience in photography, fine art, visual effects, and makeup artistry to work in entertainment production. Some of their clients include Red Bull, Beats by Dr. Dre, Mercedes-Benz, Korean Air, and K-Swiss, just to name a few, with Franz photography being featured in TED Talk Paris, NY Magazine, The Guardian, and Daily Mail UK. And Sally's work includes working with Grammy Award-winning musicians, work in the 89th Academy Awards, and in Teen Vogue. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Would you start by telling us a little bit about yourselves?
I'm Sally, this is Franz, and Holly, our golden retriever, just joined.
For having us, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for taking interest and time into chatting with us. We've never done a podcast before, so.
Yeah. We're thrilled that you're here. Can we start by hearing a little bit about the two of you separately, how you came to be into this position and how you created Steiner Creative?
Okay, I guess I'll start from the beginning. I grew up in Germany. I went to a film school for visual effects. I did a little bit of CGI animation, kind of what I wanted to get to in the beginning. And through that, I kind of went into photography, post-production, retouching, made my way from Berlin via New York to Los Angeles, and that's where I met Sally. That's like the super short kind of breakdown.
He's an artist out of Germany, born and raised there, made it to New York, where in the States, he met a mutual friend of ours. I, at the time, had been working a little bit bi-coastal. That was always my dream, to be bi-coastal. So I was kind of trying to break some ground there. And Franz left New York, got into California, LA, and our mutual friend said, you guys should meet. I was working in makeup, he's working in photography. And we met, and we've been inseparable since. That's the truth. I mean, we've met and ended up realizing we just had so many layers of common interests. I always wanted to start a studio. That was always my dream. I'm from San Francisco, and I left the city with the intention of working in entertainment in LA. I found it through makeup and got very lucky just to meet some of my my closest friends have come in through that work. My partners come into my world through that way. Steiner Creative was born 10 years ago, what, 2012? 12 years ago.
Yeah, I think so.
Started out by just trying to shoot and trying, I mean, here in LA, let's face it, guys, I'm not gonna lie, it's not like, we haven't tried new things. We're artists at the end of the day, and we're just kind of mixing our talents together, trying to make projects happen, and hoping that something will resonate.
You were in finance prior to makeup. What was that transition like? And how long were you in makeup before you guys met?
Ironically, I've always been in makeup. My first job was at 14 years old. I lied about my age to counter at Lancome, and then they realized but I had my training in within those 2 weeks, and so it's kind of funny. And I just grew up around a lot of theater, so I was really inspired just by the spotlight and stage, and I just knew LA was always going to be in my future. But I had a really humble beginning in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
I think you try to find what I realized. You always try to find the balance between doing the right thing or what you're supposed to do, and what was your passion.
Mhm.
So it was always
Yeah.
going back and forth between, go into finance, make some money, take care of your family.
Well, to be clear, I actually had no finance experience. I never had any understanding of of finance or business, although ever since I was little, I just loved money and I would read books on
Well, thank
and
God
I
you did it.
loved,
Yeah.
yeah, I really like, I have a passion for that too. So it's not like I don't have a passion for, I just had
That's
a
true. No,
really,
you have
I
both
always
sides.
loved
You do have
big
the
minds and really fascinating people.
Well, there's an artist living in here, and there's also like a, you know, a very smart woman in there. And I think if she didn't have those both sides, Steiner Creative probably wouldn't exist the way it is. I feel like I'm a little bit more one-sided on the, but I guess you always still like, you know, discover things about yourself that sometimes you overestimate yourself and sometimes you underestimate yourself. It goes back and forth a little bit.
Yeah. David Bowie has some great quote. As you can tell, I love Bowie. I have a Bowie book. My son's name is Bowie. I like Bowie a little bit.
Yeah.
So he has this really awesome quote about you're not doing the right thing unless you're going out of your depth.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I had figured that part out, but you know, right now I feel like it's a constant back and forth, trying to do what you're good at. You know, especially if you have a family and you have to provide. You tell yourself you have to you have to do the right thing, keep doing what you're good at, but you also, if you just keep doing that, then you're not gonna improve enough and develop enough. So the right thing to do is also to risk things, right?
Yeah.
At least that's how it feels. And listening to all other people, that, you know, it seems like that has to be part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, and for me, like I just was always invited back to do makeup. I was always invited, to participate in events, and I just kept. It's the one constant in my life that's been able to that I know I can do. Finance it always felt like that was just a personal life skill that I just wanted to tackle from my own sense of well-being and confidence. And that was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, because I don't have that background. Putting myself through that formal education, it was actually makeup that got me through it. So it was working jobs. And so I was always a makeup artist first. Business and finance was something that I pursued on my own, and I had to do that for myself, just for that sense of accomplishment. When I moved to LA, I just always knew that if I could put myself through that rigorous, process, there was really nothing that was going to deter me.
Yeah. So Sally, you guys are raising 3 girls. Tell me what it's like balancing your career with being a mother.
So pre-COVID or after COVID?
Both.
Very different questions, huh?
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, oh gosh, I mean, pre-COVID, we had 2 elementary, 1 toddler. We had it really well. Like, we had Blanca, we had a nanny for a while, so there was always some flexibility with what can I say? We were really lucky. In that we just had support,
Sally is doing definitely more of the lifting at home. She's spending more time with the kids than I do. We work out of Optimist Studios, which you guys mentioned in the beginning, which is by LAX. We live over in Manhattan Beach, which people who live in Los Angeles know that's not a very far commute.
No, door to door, we're talking about a 15-minute commute. So
That's amazing for LA. I lived in Glendale for 10 years. I just relocated to the East Coast because I'm originally from this side of the country. So I definitely know how long those commutes are, and I don't miss that. But
yeah, so part of it is, I can come home for lunch or for dinner, or if there's any
awesome.
Can help. And Sally works at the studio whenever she can. So we're just winging it as good as we can, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we have an incredible family. They're not really close by, but we have amazing community. Some of that community we felt really isolated for a while because of COVID. And then ironically, I'd say now we have even a bigger community now because our neighbors, like we're just really lucky with the kind of people that we have around us. And I just say that raising a family is not for a burden on one person. It takes a village. At the end of the day, it takes a village. So the juggling is possible because of the village that we have around us.
Yeah.
Yeah, my parents still live in Germany, and Sally's family is in San Francisco. So, they are around, but they're not right here. So we appreciate when they're here and when they help. But we have, like Sally said, we have a good set of neighbors and friends who
that are ants. I mean,
they turn into ants.
It's like,
we adopted them.
We have adopted people in our family.
Yeah. That takes me back to you, Franz. I read about your early career as a 3D artist. Can you tell us how you started with all of this?
Yeah. So my dad is a photographer. He was an advertising guy first, and he turned photographer, I think in his 40s.
Oh.
And I remember when he first got his first Mac computer. I think I was 15 years old, and we kind of figured out Photoshop together. So first introduction into, digital image making. And Photoshop has always been, kind of my go-to, the tool that I'm most comfortable in. But my dad always said, don't become a photographer, or don't, or he didn't at least push for that. So for me, I knew I always wanted to do something creative, but at that time, I was thinking, I was very inspired by movie intros, trailers, motion graphic, also movies like Jurassic Park and Independence Day were big influences. I remember that's when I wanted to do. I had no idea how it's done, but I wanted to do, create worlds, photorealistic images that don't exist.
Yeah. So those two movies, if you've seen them recently, they still hold up with their graphics too, which is insane.
For sure.
Back to your film school days. So you wanted to work solely in film.
So I thought I was going to be either at that point I didn't even know what it was called, but then I learned that there's softwares like Maya and 3D Max, where you can render three-dimensional images that become photoreal once they go through a certain process. And there was a film school in Berlin that I heard about. I grew up in a city called Düsseldorf, and that film school was in Berlin, which is like 500 kilometers or 300 miles west of where I grew up. So I told my parents that's where I want to go to, and I was in the lucky situation that they were able to help me out, go to that school. And I did one semester of traditional animation there, where you have to pencil draw Disney style animation.
Oh, cool.
We got an introduction into 3D softwares. We got introduction into traditional filmmaking. And I learned a lot of great people. I think, always looking back, I think the people that you meet and that you work with in these times, whoever has the luck to have a university or college or whatever time where you can play around and create things without the pressure of the industry of making money. Just met amazing people who taught me even more than the teachers there. But that was the introduction into that world, and from there on I started going a couple of different routes, worked in different industries, had different careers. Had a career as a 3D animator and 3D artist first. Did my first couple of freelance jobs in Berlin back in I graduated in 2004 from that film school, and then lived in Berlin for 6 years, doing 3D freelancing, tiny little bit of photography back then, but mostly mostly 3D animation. But I also realized how complex that world is and how technical it is. And over the next, 10, 15 years, I slowly made my way a little bit more into still photography and photo retouching, just because I realized there's people who are so much better at at all the technical parts. As you guys probably, I think that world a little bit as well. There's people who just write, who just do texturing, just do animation, just do modeling. Everyone is so specific, specialized. It's a very technical world. So I learned certain things are for me, certain things are not, but I always like that, trying to pushing the boundaries of image making in some way, creating things that are new, that haven't been seen before. So within the best of my abilities.
I have so many more questions based on everything you just said, but for both of you, Sally and for Franz, you mentioned this niche, that you found your niche, you found, your spot where you could specialize. For both of you in your separate interests, what has been your niche?
Creating edgy, new. I go back to edgy just because I feel like that we respond to a certain feeling, and it just kind of walks the line of.
I sometimes feel like I think there's a sweet spot where something is beautiful but has a little bit of a of a maybe edgy or a little bit of a touch to it, not just beautiful. I guess that's maybe the sweet spot we're trying to nail, where it's a little bit strange but still beautiful.
And then beautiful for me is just a loaded question.
It is, yeah.
Right. Subjective, right?
So subjective. I think that when we create images, we always go back to that one image that like makes us look twice, or kind of hold a longer stare, or something that just grabs you. And I guess what we're trying to do is just find that's where the moment is, try to get that moment where you feel like it sustains your interest to kind of explore it a little bit deeper. We always have that luxury of creating that, or creating what we want to create. We're always trying to push for more of what we want to create, and I think that's always an ongoing evolution.
And then of course there's always art that you show and promote more, and then there's art that you maybe do to pay the bills, and finding that balance between
maybe getting a client to push a little more, or dare a little, take more risks. Because again, going back to the safety net, I feel like I have a safety net working with Franz. We tend to work in lockstep to try to push it where we can both feel like, oh yeah, this feels good.
If we're looking at you guys working together, can you give an example from a recent project, especially one that you have posted to something like your Instagram, where you work together and what you both brought to the table to make that look the way it does?
Which project?
Maybe we can do maybe the Sedona images are a good example.
Yeah. Yes, please.
I think Sally had her first. So we did a series of images for Sedona Ledge, and she's a model and a designer. Her line is called Chained by Sedona. So
by the way, I know you're a fan of hers, and we are fans of hers too. So we started out as fans of her work. I really loved her couture line. I worked with her maybe once or twice prior to before she started shooting with us. But she just has really, she has a look, and she has a vibe, and she has a whole persona about her, and it's edgy, and it walks the line, and she pushes, and she's a creative, so she wants to, she dares, and she takes
and in
chances.
an ideal project like that, it's also that Sally and I, we both kind of on the same page creatively, and in some jobs I take over more creative control, but in other jobs, like some of the the Sedona images too. Sally takes, creative control, so it goes back and forth. And yeah, that's depending on the job. Sometimes we just do our own art, and sometimes, we go all in together. It varies a lot, but it's most fun when we're both, we both love the project and we just can work together on it equally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it shows in the photos, by the way,
yeah.
like the collaboration, the edginess. Have you had experiences where you kind of had to coax the model or the artist you're working with or designer to try to push the limit a little bit?
Well, that's always what we're
What's the word?
trying.
Coax?
Yeah.
Yeah. Try to get them to understand your vision and feel comfortable.
It's hard. It's hard. If it's not there, it's hard to push it, I have to say.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's always the case. We always try in some way or another, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And you just have to, it's part of the whole, collaborative process too. It's like where there is resistance, you have to give a little bit and take a little bit, and it'll be what it's supposed to be, I guess.
I was going to say, one advantage of working in a team is really having that extra set of eyes, whether I realize when I just work by myself, sometimes you try to look at something a day later with fresh eyes, but having a partner who really, can look at it and has a different perspective. And sometimes I send Sally an image and say, can you look at that? And she immediately has like a comment, have you tried doing that? Or, go a little easy on the contouring in post-production, or there's I think that's one reason why our best work is when we work together, because she has her perspective, I have mine. I have the male and the female perspective. And
which, by the way, I mean, that's its own evolution too, because I'm a woman, but I also have a very male perspective within me, and as a man you also have a very feminine perspective within you too.
So
you do. You absolutely do. I think that you capture women beautifully. And I've always been drawn to working with female photographers because I always felt like, oh, they have such a unique perspective. But even from your own, I don't know, you just capture women very differently than other male photographers that I've worked with.
Yeah. I agree with that completely, especially looking at the images that you recently posted of Sedona. And we were talking before we started recording, and Sally was sharing how great it is to be working with your spouse. Have you guys come up against any challenges working with your spouse, or for you guys, is it the perfect setup?
No, we work through challenges. It's not perfect all the time. We absolutely do have challenges, and there's resistance, and it's honest. And sometimes I throw my hands up and I go, okay, fine, you win this one. And sometimes it's the other way around. But we know each other well enough to know where to push, I think.
Yeah, I think lucky enough, the overall vision is very similar, and that's creatively and I think for life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's our communication styles. Like our communication styles, we have a really honest and respectful way to communicate. And
I know, yeah, and it's kind of like knowing where to push and when
and know what to
push
say.
for your opinion and push it through, and where not. But yeah, it definitely can get tricky when there's really sometimes a conflict where you feel like this is really important and I feel it's really important and she feels it's really important.
We don't hold grudges, but I think we have the personality types the kind of personality type to like, I don't know, we take a beat and revisit it and harmonize. We can.
I know, I'm very unconfrontational. I'm being told that a lot. Sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes not, But
yeah, so back to your partnership, do you guys ever say, okay, we're taking our work hats off and we're going to be in family mode right now? Do you schedule that, or does it happen, as projects come and go? How do you structure that?
No phones at the table is one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both don't follow through with that. So we just remind each other.
The truth is that we work together and we're drained. So by the end of the day, we're also trying not to talk about work or trying not to
But we
talk
do it
about
all the
something,
time.
but we
So
still do.
Yeah.
and I don't think we officially schedule things because we also kind of like talking about it. I think that's
Yeah.
one reason why, otherwise what would we talk about? No, we
Yeah.
like it, but we try to also, then when the kids are there, we try to keep it,
Oh yeah, because
try
they
to be a little
have no
respectful.
interest. They have no interest.
That surprises me. When we're talking about y'all's workday, and keep in mind that MK and I do not work in the creative world, and the majority of our audience doesn't either. So fill us in what a typical day looks like. If you're going to have a shoot, what does that look like for you from start to finish?
On a shoot day? Well, because I think every single day there's so much variety, right? So depending on where we are in the cycle of a project, if we're starting from, conceptualizing, I mean,
Well, maybe you start with a regular shoot day at the studio, kind of.
a regular shoot day at the studio would be,
If it's a school day, we drop off the kids. I normally walk the kids to school as like a short walk, luckily. I'm gonna just walk you through. If that bores you, let me know.
No, that's not
No,
boring.
no.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so bring the kids to school and then, bring the little one to preschool and then rush back and then pack our bags.
we'll load up the car, right?
Load up the car. Sally cleans her makeup all night long normally because she never finds time before. So that happens normally like at
when the kids
11
are
at
down.
night or 12 at night. She everything is on the floor. She cleans every single brush. There were times where I helped her clean the brushes, but kind of.
That's assuming that I'm doing makeup that day usually, because I don't know. I mean,
yeah, you don't always do it, but
it's we get to the studio. Let's see. I mean, crafty, right? So basically, we welcome the team. If we're gonna have a shoot, we welcome the team. Make sure that everyone gets their bearings through the studio.
And then some productions are bigger where we don't have to worry about the production aspect of it, and then some shoots are smaller where we have to handle everything ourselves. Make sure we get food before we get to studio. Make sure everyone is fed. Yeah, I mean, I think we.
It's not that interesting.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
No, it really is, because we don't know how any of this works. So this is very interesting.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then other days I just go to work, and there's a whole week of me just retouching images and preparing for the next shoot. So, and then sometimes there's 2 or 3 shoots a week, and then it's all chaos. But I think that's one part of this job. There's no real
there's always a
rhythm to
goal.
it.
There's always a goal. So you kind of go goal by goal, I think, right? So on shoot day, you have a goal to get through the job, that you hit all your shots. Prior to the shoot day, you have an idea, you have an understanding with the whole team that you've already met with before, and you go through the whole concept board, and everyone has to be already aligned, ready to go.
Yeah.
With in a rhythm. And when we hit the studio, it's to find that flow and rhythm, set the right music, even down to the music, what we're going to play that day.
No, that's always what we do last, but it's so important for everyone to
Make
get
sure
into
that
the
everyone's fed, it's a good energy. We want that's why he was talking about food, because food is such a huge part of the day too.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we need everyone to be happy. And I think when it comes down to it, when you're working with artists, they want to feel appreciated and inspired. And that's the kind of environment that we're trying to do and create in every experience in where we receive a team. And even if it's just us two, it is that's where I think our creativity, you feel like you have the blank card, really. You can do what you want to do because you're in a good mood and you're inspired. And some artists actually create in a brooding state, right? There's also the songwriters who say, oh, I have to be completely depressed and under rain to create music. And
Can I ask, I know this is off topic a little bit, but you might have said that or explained that already. How you guys, real quick, how you guys started doing this? And I know we haven't even talked about Grimes, and we don't know that much about her anyway, but I would just love to get a super quick kind of idea of how you guys started.
Yeah, so I became a Grimes memer. I was in grad school. I loved Grimes, but I needed an outlet because as a therapist, I'm helping people process trauma all day. So I realized that I could use comedy and start a memes page. There was a lack of memes pages for Grimes. I started my page. I found out that people were interested in what I had to say beyond the comedy. MK and I became friends through the Grimes community and then decided, like, heck, let's just start a podcast and invite on all these people that we think are cool to talk to. MK, would you say that about sums it up?
Yeah, and I got into Grimes during COVID and found Jen's page, and it was like an amazing outlet to be a part of. You know, she would do lives, and I became a part of the community. I'm also just like a pop culture, like movie enthusiast writer, so that's kind of my background. When I get into something, I love to talk about it and meet the people involved with it, and also just in industries in general. So it's kind of a perfect match with Jen and I.
Are you more fascinated by her music or by her style or her visuals? Because I think I've been following her, but it was mostly, I didn't know her music so well, but you know, she has very
The
kind of
aesthetic
similar
appeal,
aesthetic,
right?
yeah,
This
than
the
what we
aesthetic
do,
appeal,
for sure.
going into, you know, different worlds. It's otherworldly. I can never say that word. Why
Yes.
am I trying? Otherworldly.
Yeah, it's a
And
good word, I
that's
think.
yeah. Otherworldly.
That's a great question. And I think for me, and I'm curious, MK, if yours is the same, mine started out for the music. And then I became so sucked into what you're referring to, Sally, like the otherworldly feeling, the almost drama of it, the fashion, the way she does her makeup, all of that was really appealing to me. And that's why I was also really interested in y'all's work, because something about your photography felt very similar to me.
Yes.
That like emotion in the photography, and like you like look at it for a long time because it captures your attention. MK, what would you say?
I've started with her music, but then, you know, as you become a fan, you find everything else that she's a part of. And she does create these own realms within her art, built with the music, with the ambience, with the style, and just creates narratives. And I love that about her. And I saw that a lot in your work too, with the edginess and the boundaries you push. Like each photo, it just tells a story.
Yes.
And there's something so inviting about that.
I think that at the end of the day, we are artists that appreciate surrealism, and we respond to surrealist details. And given the chance to play in that, we will invite it, and we'll just lovingly get lost in it, because escapism, it's just you know, I think that's what kind of ties it all together. Even with Grimes, I mean, there is an escapism about it. You are escaping something. You're allowing yourself to imagine, and it's kind of, you know, it's important to us, because when that's at the root of everything we do. We're playing with our own imaginations and trying to see where we can take things.
Yeah, and I'm curious for the both of you guys. It must have been so strange having a Grimes memer and then this random podcast page reach out to you. How much did you know about Grimes?
I knew that, you know, she was with Elon Musk. I think her whole romance is really public, and
oh yeah.
So she wasn't,
yeah,
you know, like someone I didn't know of. Her music, I mean, it is a mood, and I have heard of it before, or I've heard it before, but visually she's someone iconic and someone that always comes in our feed, and we're always revisiting for some inspiration when we're always, I mean, Bjork is another one that I love really too, and I'm always revisiting her work. And going back to Lance, I mean, Bjork and the masks, I mean, I've always kind of been fascinated by, you know.
Yeah, I guess the futurism is always something that from the very first, you know, university college projects always, you know, was there in my work for sure, and I think Sally to a certain degree, she can only go so deep into the sci-fi. At some point she's like,
Oh, yeah,
okay.
that's where we have a little bit of a, I'm not a sci-fi person. It just
Yeah.
doesn't, it doesn't
I think
feel
it's I think
believable enough to me. And I think that's where I feel like, okay, that's just way too out there. And I don't, it
almost
doesn't
became
hold for me.
a product designer too. That was, I remember I doing a test in high school where they test you, answer all these questions, and they say this is your,
Like a career test.
you know, like a
Oh
career.
yeah.
And I think for me it was product designer, and
Wow.
I kind of see that a little bit because when in my photography, I feel like half of it is product design or like costume design, and you can't do, I guess you can't do everything. You can only do so much, or be good enough at so much to make it a profession. But creating these visuals kind of includes a lot of these elements, and you can play costume designer, you can play product designer. And I thought it was interesting when I was listening to Lance's podcast. He was getting into the differences of being an actual designer and just creating things, virtually or digitally.
Yeah.
It's a whole different world, and I thought it was really interesting to think about that a bit more. But I definitely like to play fashion designer in my visuals.
Oh, and that definitely shows. So I wanted to go back to, you mentioned that you have playlists at your sets. So do you cater the music completely on the vision of what you're working on at the moment, or are there ones that you kind of go back to?
Usually, yeah, and also a mashup of the model, whatever they're going to respond to, that will get their energy to emulate what we need.
If we shoot, like a sci-fi kind of Sedona, Chained by Sedona, we put on Blade Runner or something like that to get into.
Vangelis.
For sure.
Although she likes Russian rap, so we use. So
Okay.
So we'll play that. That's what.
That's a vibe.
Get it?
Yeah. Whatever. I think we feel it out because the talent has to get into the mood the most. So if they have a preference, great. If not, then we'll just play whatever. We have a couple go-to playlists, which I play way too much, but it's definitely, it helps so much to have the right mood.
Yeah, and I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. Sally, I know that you have a skincare line, which I'm very interested in. But before I ask about that, makeup. What are your top 3 makeup no-nos and makeup do this? We need to know.
Oh God, makeup no-nos.
It's a trap,
It's a trap. It's a trap. I am someone who feels like less is more to begin with.
Yeah.
That's because I've always had sensory issues, and I've always suffered a lot with skin. So whatever feels the most comfortable. For the longest time, I always felt like I had to be really self-conscious about my skin texture, hyperpigmentation, all the little things that, we just kind of suffer through inside when your skin isn't perfect. And I think that the world of retouching and beauty ads and everything that we see has just elevated our anxiety about how we're supposed to look. I mean, now dolphin skin is really in, they actually promote products to make your skin look like super glazed, and I'm all for it. If that's what makes you happy, by all means, fuck it. Oh, so sorry.
Sure.
You're okay.
Beep.
Yeah. I just know that, God, there's so many products. Have fun with it. Play. I don't know. I don't know if I'm the person to ask for that. I'm Latina, so in my just growing up and seeing my mom and how in Latin American markets it's just another beast, women are really contrived to look a certain way. And I know that the cosmetology business is, God, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars that they make. And it's beautiful to me to see someone embrace character. And I think that's what I try to bring into makeup and play a little bit in, is just to bring out some, the essence of a character within the world, as opposed to sit down and make me look pretty, which.
Yeah, and that's also so many different requirements in your job, right? If we do
my
athletic
career,
shoot, it just has to look like it's not there, the makeup.
Yeah.
That's, one other career I guess we have is doing these kind of more athletic inspired shoots, where it's basically all very natural and real world, and it's a whole different task than when you're creating a character, right? It's almost like a different job. And same with shooting an athletic model is a completely different job than creating these sci-fi images, which leads to it's a whole nother topic. But it's very.
I actually wanted to switch into that because I had read that somewhere about how you garnered a license deal with the city of Los Angeles to include your work in the bid to host the 2024 Summer Olympic Games in LA. What's going on there?
Yeah, that has been a couple
so
years ago.
That was a couple years ago. So what ended up happening was that our old office used to be right in Venice Beach, and there's just a lot of, if you're familiar with Venice Beach, there's a lot of energy and activity.
Mm-hmm.
Urban street style skaters. We have a huge skate park, right?
Yeah.
And it's a scene, and it's fun to capture it. And Franz started shooting just kind of the landscapes and the characters that were there, the skaters, the athletes, and he got, I don't know how did it happen? I think it was 72 and Sunny, one of the advertising agencies locally nearby.
One of the agencies had the account for the Olympics or the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I think, when is it happening? Los Angeles won it, right?
We won it, and it comes out in 2024. Yeah. So they basically asked if they could license that image to include it in their campaign for the bidding of the Olympics in LA. So that's how it was used. I forgot who was on the foundation for that. I think it was I don't know. I can't remember the organization, but
I'd imagine it's really kind of difficult to capture movement as a photographer the way that you do. I took one photography class in college, so I don't really have too much experience with that. Feels like to really capture somebody in motion or like a ballerina jumping. It just seems like a long shoot potentially, because you have to get it completely right.
I mean, there's the technical aspect to it, to get the image sharp enough, or sometimes you want a little bit of motion blur, sometimes you want it sharp. Then it's good to have the right equipment. Some cameras take only 3 or 4 images per second, and then if you spend a little more money, it goes up to 10, 20, even I think 30 images per second. And then it makes it easier. You just hold the shutter, and then afterwards you pick the perfect frame. But those are all things I guess you have to learn and find out for yourself. But yeah, the whole athletic photography world is a whole nother chapter of our
story, I guess.
Of our story and of our company. We sometimes I feel like we're trying to do it all, and then sometimes we feel like we have to focus a bit more on one thing, and then you go back, you say, but I still love the other thing. And it's
first of all, it's nice. I mean, I think you can look at it that way, and I think it's also nice to be invited to participate in projects. So when 72 and Sunny says, hey, 72 and Sunny, by the way, they're a wonderful advertising agency out here. They have offices in New York and Amsterdam. It's nice to know that the creatives within the commercial world would actually hold value in something that we could capture that for us might have not been. It was just a moment. It was a moment in time, it was a moment in time capturing a guy doing like a backflip on Venice Beach, and you just happened to, you got the right moment.
Yeah.
you guys are so humble to talk to, considering how much you've done and the people that you've worked with. If you had to pick a favorite project, what would you guys say was the best thing you ever worked on, or something that just felt very fulfilling to you?
Is there one?
A favorite. I think they're so unique. I love every single one because there's always a lesson in them. That makes us better. There's usually, for me, what comes up is a lot of anxiety because the juggling, going back to the juggling, it's like, oh, do I have the time resources to really give this project the attention it deserves without taking away too much from my family, or there being some, other sacrifice that could impact us.
It's also funny sometimes the bigger productions where you maybe make more money and you have like a big team and all that, they are very rewarding in the end, but I feel like the most enjoyable ones are the one
smaller
where
ones.
it's just you and or like a super small crew and just
I think the
you
more,
and the talent
the more fulfilling is when I feel safe to kind of create, because we throw everything and we just get to play, and that's because we're not under somebody else's thumb to say, do it this way.
What would your advice be to aspiring photographers and makeup artists?
You want to start?
Well, how about you? What would you say to an aspiring makeup artist?
Me for makeup artist?
Yeah. Because, okay, what's your photography? Like from your, your point of view, you have a different perspective.
Well, I don't even know what my job's called anymore because it's every like other month there's a new thing. Now I'm including AI into my visuals, which the AI gets better every 2 weeks. So things that I created like a month ago are already obsolete.
Wow.
So my advice for a makeup artist is to incorporate some of the tools, because I'm really lucky that I have you, where I don't have like the media technical knowledge. I have him, so he really pushes me to use the tools that I would be scared to use, and I think that's actually helping me a lot right now.
Yeah, I've heard that question a lot, people being asked, what would you recommend? And then that's normally people who are somewhat established, more or less.
Yeah.
A lot of times they feel like they're already out of touch, even though you are established and you have like a client base. But if you had to put yourself into the shoes of someone who's just starting, man, it is hard, because a lot of the rules that you were taught, or the things that you did, maybe right or wrong, are already not what's the word, they don't matter anymore.
They don't matter.
Obsolete. Yeah.
It's hard, in the creative scene, this whole influencer scene was so dominant for the last couple years. It's almost like, hey, why would you not want to be an influencer in any kind of way? Use the social network. If I was 20 or something right now, I don't know. I think it's always good to have some sort of skill set, learn like some sort of a software or a technique, have one solid one that you can fall back to. For me, a lot of time that is Photoshop and retouching. I started out more as a creative image maker. Then we took a little bit 10, 15 years more almost as a post-production company, and then we kind of made our way back into more of a content creating company. But it's always great to have like some sort of a basic skill set that you can fall back on and then build on top of that.
It sounds like keeping up with the current trends is one of the most difficult parts of this job. And as we're coming to a close, our audience is deeply interested in AI. And so AI and art is double interest to everybody. So Franz, can you say a little bit more about what AI you guys use to help enhance your work?
Yeah, I only started using AI a couple months ago, I would say, maybe half a year now. And I dabbled in a couple of the, for me, I know AI is all over the place, with its music and writing and image creation, but I personally only use it for image creation, and it has been, I think, a wild ride because, like I was saying, it develops, every day. I feel like it's improving so fast. I've been using a software called Midjourney a lot, which is all over the internet too, and it's I don't know, it's fascinating. Definitely, it's a mix of feeling inspired and fascinated, but also a little bit scary because I don't know what's going on, behind the scenes. I don't know how the code works. I just use it as well as I can, but it makes you definitely think how, with the speed that it's developing, how, where it's going to leave everyone, whether it's, artists, image creators. I think it's developing too fast for me to have some sort of a advice there, but it's the only thing I can see is that maybe the techniques and the crafts are becoming more and more less important, and your personal style, and your intention becomes more and more important, because that is not something that can be maybe replaced so quickly by an AI, maybe at some point, but I don't know. It's a weird one, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you both so much for spending time on a Saturday to sit down and talk with us. If people want to follow you guys and keep up with your work, what's the best way for them to do so?
Steiner.creative.
Yeah, we're pretty active on Instagram, which is Steiner.creative, and yeah, I think that's probably, and then there's has our webpage and our emails, and we're normally pretty good at replying to anyone who writes us if we find it.
Yeah, we're good evidence of that. You guys are so kind to us to come on, so thank you so much. We appreciate hearing all about your craft. And guys, stay tuned for more content from us here at What's Up Grimes, and thanks so much, Sally and Franz.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.